We're going to bring our March 10th City Council meeting to order, and we will begin with roll call. Jenny?
Sarchet?
Here.
Savage?
Here.
Walters?
Here.
Vogel? Here. Otis?
Here. Moving on to item number 3, approval of agenda. A motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
And roll call.
Vogel? Yes. Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Item number 4, public comment period. This is the time and place for comments for any item other than those that are a public hearing. I see that we do have someone who has asked to speak to the council, Justin Young. Justin, come on up.
Hello, everybody. So I'm a member of the Library Board of Trustees here in Polk City. So I just wanted to come talk to you tonight on behalf of the Board of Trustees about some laws that are currently being proposed at the State House and how they could impact the city, and hoping that we can kind of team up and encourage the City Council to reach out to our representatives and help us secure funding for the library. So one of these bills is House File 521, which would remove libraries from obscenity laws and protection about that. And part of the issue with that is I'm a middle school teacher, and so I see different books that kids are reading and things like that. And I have seen kids that are reading Colleen Hoover books and Stephen King books, and I was that kid as well who's reading Stephen King probably way too young. But the issue is, if this law does go forward, that the library is going to have a pretty big burden on their hands of preventing those materials from being checked out by minors. And so the library is trying to figure out how they are going to deal with that. And that could mean issues where some libraries across the state are talking about erecting barriers within their building, which obviously would cost money from the budget, and preventing access of minors to different sections of the library that are geared toward adults. There are some libraries across the state that are debating whether to not allow minors at all to check out materials because they don't want to risk lawsuits. They want their parents to check materials out for them and guarantee that parental consent is being given. That would definitely change the way the library functions. It would change the way that cities kind of impact that. And we thought at the trustee meeting that we had last week that that's going to really impact the citizens of Polk City and have a dramatic impact about a kid stopping by after school, being able to check out a book, during the summer being able to come by to a program and check out a book on the way home. So that's not quite sure what that's going to mean for that one. The other law is House File 880, which would cut off state funding for belonging to groups like the American Library Association. That has a huge impact on the library's budget. For example, the American Library Association provided $10,000 in funding to the Polk City Library to help pay for our new study pod that is in constant use by the citizens here of Polk City, and we think it's been a great asset to people. If we pull out of that organization, that could mean loss of grants, funding. It's the largest source of grants that the library receives throughout its history. And so that would be a really big problem potentially for the city, for its budget, and for the library. If we stay in the organization, that could mean a loss of $5,000 per year from state funding. And that's going to have a pretty dramatic impact on our budget and the resources we can provide to the citizens. That might mean cuts in programming. One of our biggest items is the idea of Libby, which is our ability to check out ebooks. I don't know if any of you use that service. I use it quite a bit. And the Polk City Library, I think, since being on the trustees just about year and a half, 2 years, I think, Jamie, I've been on about a year and a half. I've learned a lot about the library and the idea that we have to get rid of materials at about 3 times the rate of a typical library, just due to the size limitations. And we're a growing city, and eventually, hopefully down the road, we'll have a library that is larger and fits our city. But right now, that's just not in the cards. And so Libby is the way that we kind of make do with that, and having all those ebooks. If we were to lose $5,000 a year in funding, that could dramatically impact that, and cutting off access to Libby and limiting how many books can be checked out from that, or turning that off altogether, would be a consideration that we'd have to make, and also to prevent that access of obscene materials. So as a member of the trustees, I am here just to hopefully encourage you all and encourage all the citizens of Polk City that might be watching this meeting contact your legislator. Regardless of your political affiliation, our big thing with our motto at the library is that we want it to be a place where all people can meet and grow and learn. And we don't want it to be a place of politics. We don't want it to be a place of division. We want it to be a place where anyone can come, get materials, check out, and be a vital part of our community. And that's what we're all about. So we want to stay out of the political scene, but with these two laws, it could dramatically impact services that citizens here in Polk City are having. And so we wanted to make people aware, and we wanted to hopefully invite the city council and members across Polk City to contact their legislators and hopefully speak out against those two bills, which are House File 880 and House File 521. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Justin.
So we'll then move on to item number 5, which is consent items. We'll ask for a motion and a second, please.
So moved. Second.
And roll call.
Otis? Sarchet?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Vogel? Yes.
Item number 6, business items. A Polk City Junction Trail presentation. Travis, I understand you are leading it. Okay. There we go. It's big.
Okay, Polk City Junction trailheads. It's been a couple months in the works here, but we have created 2 different concepts for the trailheads we really like. They have 2 very different characters. I would say they have 2 very different price points, but we wanted to make sure that we got council's feedback before pushing these any further. So just some background here on these trailheads. Last Monday, we presented these trailhead concepts to the Parks Commission. I'm going to choose to not tell you what their opinion was until after this presentation, so that we can get some honest feedback. But they gave us pretty strong feedback and gave us some good things to look at. I guess just for the greater good, kind of give you an idea of some of the background on this project. So right now, phase 4 or 5 in the trailhead has $1.268 million in grant funding, 700,000 of which was specific to the last application we put in to the State Rec Trail application, which was related to the trailhead, but they were looking at the project as 4 or 5 and the trailhead. And then the funding does require that off-street facility along or within phase 4 or 5 and the trailhead. Moving into the concepts here. So concept A is what's showing on your screen right now. What we're calling this the trailhead with some parking. 17 stalls on each side of the property, totaling to 34 total parking stalls. The alleyway on what we'll call the southwest corner of the property is owned by the city. What we've got labeled is the old West Walnut Street right-of-way. We have an access easement from Columbus Junction Park, the adjacent property owner, allowing access to facilitate the construction of those parking stalls. A few items associated with this concept. You've got a 16-foot by 16-foot trail structure, or a shade structure on the northwest corner of the property. You've got an intermix of ornamental overstory and pine trees or evergreen trees throughout the property. You've got this dry creek bed. So this is an option where we're going to manage our stormwater on the surface. We're going to turn it into an asset in terms of creating a dry creek bed with some growth around it to help manage that water, but not do so in a manner that requires a detention basin or something larger that stands water. It would be dry 60, 70, 80% of the time, with those major rainstorms being handled through the dry creek bed. An example of what we're talking about is up here in the right corner. Throughout this concept as well, you'll see these small structures with the glow around them. Those are lighted bollards. Both concepts will have these lighted bollards, but the reason we selected going towards a lighted bollard versus a full-blown street light or something similar that's overhead like that is what we want to do is we want to tie this facility into the square without having to exactly match what's on the square. We've done a little bit of preliminary research as we were putting these concepts together, and the street lights that you guys currently have on the square are going to be extremely hard to exactly match. And so as a means of trying to avoid exactly matching them, we're going to do something that's stylistically the same, but has more of a trail feel to it. So an example of what we're talking about with those lighted bollards is up here in the right-hand corner as well. What we've got shown right here is a triangular trailhead kiosk, similar to what's shown up here in the right-hand corner. Bulletin boards, trail map, announcement boards, things like that, things that are very common on a trailhead. That's what that kiosk would be for. And then you've got the shade structure example up here. The big thing with this concept.
Is that what, the arrow points to the shelter, but that's called shelter in the blow-off?
Oh, yep, sorry. Yep, so the shelter is, this guy here, and then the trail kiosk is here. The really cool thing that I think our landscape architects and city staff are really, really excited about is the site identity structure. So back before the new year, we went around central Iowa with city staff and looked at several existing trailheads throughout the state. And what staff really gravitated towards was there's a common theme on the Raccoon River Valley Trail where they have large columns with tile all around that have consistent coloring. They have a design that ties the whole network together. And so what we've kind of been drawn to is making our site identity structure similar to that, some sort of column with colors or symbols, but tying it into the rest of Polk City's facilities where you're a city for all seasons. So each of these larger yellow boxes you see, 2 here and 2 here, in our mind would represent a season. The exact details of that we haven't gotten to yet. We haven't dialed that in exactly, but that would be something for fall, winter, spring, summer. The cool thing about this concept is the way that we've got this sited is we would have 2 up here, 2 down here, and then in the future we've got space so that you could add 2 more here and 2 more here, so you have pockets of 4 seasons on both ends of the trailhead. The other thing about this concept is you've got a lot of flexibility in the things that you can add in the future. So right now we've got 16 bike racks throughout the concept. We've got 2 picnic tables, and then we've got a space here for an additional trail kiosk if you want that triangular trail kiosk if you wanted to add one. We currently only have 2 picnic tables, so if you wanted to add additional seating throughout, we've got spaces for benches as well, but there's other spaces where you could add additional bench spaces. This concept provides a lot of flexibility for enhancing the space even further as we move forward. To give you an idea, so concept A, base costs, so this would be paving, infrastructure, things that are kind of non-negotiable for what we've got shown. You got a base price of $279,415. Utilities, so that would be sub drains along the back of curb. That would be area intakes to handle that dry creek bed, as well as some curb intakes to handle the water that would gather on the parking spaces. And then getting electrical service to the site for those electrical bollards and all those things comes out to just short of $40,000. And then your site amenities are $186,000. So that gives you an idea of where all the costs are broken out to, with a total cost for this concept of $664,615. Included on this cost estimate, we have provided an estimate for a pre-engineered modern restroom facility. If, for anybody that's ridden the Raccoon River Valley Trail, what this is modeled after is the facility that's out in Dallas Center. It's a 2-stall, 1 men's, 1 women's, with a drinking fountain up front. It's got a map, it's got a donor wall, and it's got a small awning that overhangs the front of it. It's a modular block, it's painted tastefully. It would give you the guys the option of being able to construct that and paint it as you would, but that kind of gives you the price for that. The second line item we have in the restroom option is a portable toilet enclosure. So think like if anybody's been down to the 12 Oaks Park, that's kind of what we're talking about. 3 sides of a composite fence. That price does not include the portable toilet rental, but that gets you 3 sides of a composite fence. In concept, we've looked at some of the possible locations that you could put this, and I think most logically it sits right here with the door facing northwest towards the shade structure. So you block the mini storage, you block the business owners to the southwest, and then you block the existing residential homes to the southeast. That's an option. That's an additional $5,000 that's not included in that $664,000. City staff has kind of indicated to us they would like to take a wait and see approach. The Parks Commission on both of these concepts wanted to see some sort of restroom facility at first blush. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the Parks Commission sat and where city staff sits.
Travis, where would the full-blown facilities go in the same spot? Is there enough?
So
real
the
estate?
full-blown facility would take the place of the shade structure.
Okay.
Because of the, and that is something that will apply to both of these, but because of the elevation that's going on this site, we're having to be very, very selective in the manner in which we put flat surfaces. Because every flat surface means you have to grade something steeper, or you have to make a wall a little bit taller, or you have to add a wall. And so that's kind of why we're being mindful of the 16 by 16 represents if you were to take that enclosure and turn it into a restroom facility, and then you would put the awning off the front of that shade structure.
So is there anything in the 664 that is not grant eligible?
No, not to my understanding.
The total grant was what again?
700.
So I believe you mentioned during the Parks meeting that the way the Dallas Center one is designed, the current shelter structure could in the future be converted using what's already there.
Correct. So that's the way we've got it set up, is that if you put the shade structure in and either you get a bunch of complaints that there isn't a restroom facility and you know, pointing them to the city hall restrooms isn't working, or you see that the shade structure, you know, the way that the parks system further develops, maybe you're not doing as much programming as you thought at the trailhead, but you want that restroom facility, yeah, you would convert that shade structure to a restroom. And that the way that it's set up is you could do that at a later date. And that the pricing is set so that that is the case. It may come down just a little bit if you've got some of the footings set already, but generally speaking, that gives you a good ballpark number of what that facility would cost.
So would the portable toilets go behind that shade structure?
No, so that's what we're talking about in this corner. So it would sit down here in this corner facing towards the door would face towards the shade structure. And that's just us preliminarily looking at a location. The location may change if the council wants to pursue that. But we would just, that's kind of the place that makes the most sense right now, between the trail layout, the parking layout, the site layout, and some of the elevation concerns.
And if you back up on the breakdown of the costs, was that was down below, wasn't it?
Correct.
So that'd be $5,000 on top of the 664, so 669.
Correct.
Almost
Basically
670.
670.
So another thing that was brought up at the Parks Commission meeting was the absence of ADA compliant parking on
Correct.
this site. Have we looked at what our requirements for that will be and how we would go
I
about
did not get a chance to do that between those meetings. What I would tell you is in both concepts, because of the number of parking stalls we have, we would potentially lose one, maybe two stalls for accessibility purposes. We would have to look at what the guidance is for those facilities in terms of what you have to have when you don't have an actual structure associated with a facility like this. Because the ADA parking it's a complex math equation, let's just put it that way. Figuring out what applies and what doesn't.
And if we converted the north side bank to straight-in parking, do you think potentially we could gain that back if we have to have it?
The way that we currently have this set up, I don't think head-in parking versus slant parking is gonna make a lot of difference because we don't have the extraneous pavement beyond. Like if we had brought a curb in here and just cut it out and then you've got this dead triangle, I think there is a potential for that. But because we're strictly paving the parking area, I don't know that that makes a lot of difference. But I think there is enough flexibility that if we were close, we could probably get that stall back potentially by maybe extending the parking on Walnut or something like that. So there is a distinct possibility that maybe we don't lose any stalls at all. I don't want to say that we're for sure going to lose one, but any impact is probably going to be the same regardless of concept, or very similar. So any other questions on concept A? So concept B, we are coining the parking lot with trailhead. So concept A was a trailhead with parking. This is a parking lot with some trailhead amenities. So what you'll see here, we've got some common components. We've got the shade structure. We've got the trail kiosk. Here you've got your site identity structures up here facing to 3rd Street with lighted bollards coming down the hill. Something worth noting is this green space here would be pretty severely sloped. This concept is doing a lot with the elevation in small chunks. So this would be somewhere in the ballpark of 20%, which is above a maintainable slope, but it's certainly not a gentle slope. You've got 36 parking stalls on this one versus the 34 parking stalls on concept A. In this one, instead of that dry creek bed, what we've got is we've got an oversized storm sewer underneath the pavement that would be sized appropriately as to not overwhelm the downstream storm sewer system. We've got this headlight screening here that's not necessarily on this side because of that slope, but we've got headlight screening here to block us from that mini storage facility, and then you've got a modular block retaining wall. We've included some samples, but if you've paid attention to the City Hall, since it's been completed, this is what we would specify on this facility would be the exact same block that you have around your City Hall. This decorative guardrail would be very, very similar, if not an exact carbon copy of what we've got around City Hall as well. So tying those features together with other city facilities. We've got bike racks tucked up under this tree here, and then we've got picnic tables included under the shade structure. One thing worth noting on both is we do have spaces for bike fix-it stations at the direction of Jason. With additional, on concept A, we've got spaces for additional bike fix-it stations as well. With concept B, I think I've covered everything in concept. So concept B, those fixed costs for just the base improvements go up to $355,000. Utility costs are more or less the same. This one's about $2,000 higher, with amenity costs going down. A total cost on this one is basically $729,000, with those additional restroom facilities available. This one in particular, I don't have a good idea of where a portable toilet could go. We would definitely have to look at the elevations and where we could potentially make that one work. Any questions?
So scroll up on that. So are the portable toilets added at the bottom of that then too?
Correct.
As an extra? Oh, okay.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, so the base costs are no restroom facilities at the direction of at the direction of city staff, but could be added at the direction of council. Questions on concept B?
Well, it's over budget.
So, we recommended to the Parks Commission that we prefer concept A. We think it gives you a good balance of parking and trailhead. I think it reflects the recreational identity of the city. I think it plays more as a park facility that also solves a parking problem without oceans and oceans of pavement. The Parks Commission was very heavily in favor of concept A to the point where I think some of them quit paying attention to concept B once they saw it. They felt very, very strongly about it. They preferred the logistics of angle parking versus having a two-way drive aisle with a large ocean of pavement in the middle. The questions that they did ask were, can Walnut and the alley be two-way, or should we convert them to one-way in concept A? And then, like I mentioned, they really, really liked, or really, really wanted a toilet option from the get-go versus a wait-and-see approach as staff had suggested. So I'd welcome feedback, questions, comments from the council. Nick, did I cover with
I
Parks?
think you hit most of everything they asked about.
Okay.
So can you show B, concept B?
Yep. Concept B?
If I could, I would tell you something about my biking experience in our friendly neighbors in Madrid. They have a concept like this where it's one way in and one way out, and then you drive straight into your parking stall. People's bike racks are getting longer and longer all the time, particularly as bikes get bigger. So a lot of times when you're trying to pull into those spaces, people then, once they get in and take their bikes off, don't put their bike racks up. And so you have the additional burden of the bike racks sticking into this one lane where people are trying to jockey in and then turn around and jockey back out.
Yep.
So that's very much what that B concept reminds me of, is what they do over in Madrid. I don't know if that helps council or not, but anyway, that's my impression.
So not going out too far on a limb because it's with what Parks said, but I don't think there's any question that A is, for two spots, A is dramatically superior, less expensive, in my opinion. I would like to see some massaging here, but I want to get out of the practice of permanent portable toilets. I know we have to do it on some of the neighborhood parks for logistical reasons. I don't think it's appropriate to do here. But then again, I also remember a square that didn't have any public toilets for a long time and we got away just fine. And part of the reason why we made the toilets as accessible as we did in this building, albeit a block and a half away, however you want to define it, doesn't seem now worth $360,000. But again, I appreciate you putting them on here because when something is $5,000 versus $360,000, you got to talk about it. A lot of people won't use them for sanitary or whatever. And I don't know that this proximity to the square where we do technically have the ability to connect to plumbing. I don't even know that I like them where we don't connect to plumbing, but you can get on board with that for obvious reasons. So A seems to make more sense to me. And I guess before I go into my two wrinkles, I'll let other people weigh in.
Can you put A up?
Yep. The other thing that I also wanted to mention as well is, once we get to the point of hammering out those details on the site identity structures, the exact bollards we're gonna use, the exact structures we're gonna use, all that kind of stuff, we do plan to present to the Arts Commission as well, or the Arts and Culture Committee, as well as the schedule becomes clearer, we do intend to contact any business owner in and around the trail construction so that they understand the impacts to their property, the schedule of that, and what the actual modifications will be in front of their structures. So that is one thing I forgot to mention.
So that's exactly where I was gonna go, and I'll bring it up now, because I do wanna, I think, amend the order. So we pay Snyder for their engineering. We do not pay them for their artistic ability, not to question that, and I'm in no position to question anybody's art ability. A second grader can draw better than I can for the most part. But if we have a group in town that is tasked with that, I think we should engage them sooner rather than later, and that would include some of the, what are they called, the sidelight identity features, the what do we have to call it? Storytelling,
Storytelling.
all of that stuff. And even, because my personal take, when you were talking about, I don't want this to look like anything else on the trail. We're not, you know, trail stop number 3 for anything. I want to look different. I want to look better. And especially in a case where we're not paying for this, we got a grant. So I don't want to compromise the overall top dollar of the grant. So if we can get a dollar amount not to exceed, and here's what Polk City Arts and Culture is tasked with, let them run. And technically I'm the representative there, but they don't ask me for anything artistic related, as they shouldn't. So I'm not compromising. The other thing is, I do really want to proactively reach out to the businesses, and I say that looking at Stacy, because I think there are a couple businesses here that should be upgrading, period, and should be upgrading with this amenity added in their backyard, and some others that could upgrade, and maybe we tweak some of the picnic tables, thinking the creamery, some of that, if they want to loop around. The only thing that marginally concerns me is the sidewalk and trail piece right next to Third. So if we can wrap that around a little bit closer, maybe put a picnic table or the shelter a little bit closer to where I would perceive it's more likely to be used by the creamery. I think that makes sense, but those are tweaks. If the creamery's willing to play ball in their connection on their property, maybe we look at it.
So it is worth noting, you do have a petition and waiver for that, to their property line.
Okay,
I think there is a small segment, well, no, there's not. So on their property, you have a petition and waiver that you could call.
Yeah.
That when they redeveloped that land, they signed and recorded.
okay. But for all 4 of these businesses that, and I don't know why, it's most targeted at them, but, everybody who's interested, or at least everybody that's on the square, I think there's a message here, like, we're investing here. Some of these businesses have not upgraded the backside of their building, and I get that, that's money out of their pocket. But I do think, and I'm not talking about the creamery, but there are some other ones that could stand to match the aesthetics that's gonna be here when this is done.
Okay, thank you. So let's just start down here. Any comments?
I largely agree with Rob's comments on letting the Arts and Culture Council run with the identity features. I would push back a little bit on the restroom facilities, though. $5,000 there is not a lot of money for this. I don't love the idea of having portable restrooms right off the square, but I guarantee anybody who's coming from Slater after having 2 beers would really appreciate not having to fight another couple blocks down, figuring out where the restrooms are at City Hall. So I think it will get used, and it would be appreciated to have it there on site, even though it's not the best option. That said, $360,000 to do it permanently is a lot up front right now. And I think that's something to look at in the future, but not right now.
Mandy?
Largely agree with comments that have been said. I don't know what my opinion is on the restroom. I agree that it's not ideal to have a porta potty there. It's expensive to put the full thing, but I agree that it would be nice to have there. So I don't know yet what my opinion is on the restroom, but I think concept A and engage arts and culture and see if the businesses give them the heads up that this is coming, and yeah, improving the back of their buildings may help drive business to them as well.
I would lean toward A as well. If we have to do toilet features, I think the portable is, for price consideration, is the best option, but I'm not a huge fan of them either. But I do echo what you're saying there, Nick, where it's better to have one close by than to find somewhere else to go.
Jeff?
Oh, my turn. No, I agree. To me, option A is a slam dunk. Regarding the facilities, I know when I ride the bike, though, going from town to town, you're usually stopping at the businesses and using their facilities and spending money and doing that sort of stuff. So I also see that as kind of if we provide facilities there, that might not be someone stopping in and, making some sort of purchases that are business. So I'm kind of leaning away for, plus they're sightly in my opinion, the Kaibos, even having 3-sided kind of structures around them. So I'd probably, my preference would be not have a portable.
With my cyclist hat on, I do the same thing, where I frequent businesses because I need to use the restroom, so.
Well, generally, I mean, it depends. There's different types of bicyclists, right? But the ones that are gonna need to use the restroom more frequently are the ones that are gonna stop and have another pint, right? So to speak, so.
Travis, just a question on the toilet enclosure. Could we do an alternate bid for that enclosure? And then the council could make a decision then?
We certainly could.
Okay. Would that be a good candidate for an alternate bid?
Yeah, because it's a little bit different in that it doesn't, that composite fence isn't something we're proposing anywhere else. The only hesitation I have with answering that question is I would have to look at the specific requirements and restrictions that comes with a DOT letting and bid alternates.
Okay.
Because there may be less flexibility than we're used to in terms of like when we do a street repair project and we have 4 or 5 locations that are technically above our estimated budget, but if they come in well, we add those. I would just have to do a little bit more digging in terms of what our flexibility and what our options are for that.
So just 2 quick comments. One is, are we gonna plumb in the shelter for toilets eventually while we're building this?
So our costs do not include that, particularly because we're gonna have to bore under 3rd Street anyway. So the cost savings versus additional expenditure specifically for that service is minimal in terms of what you would have to go back and fix. We certainly could, but the fact of the matter is you're gonna end up taking up a little bit of concrete anyway to get that to the surface. Even if we brought it over and capped it under where that shade structure, you're still gonna have to take a portion of that sidewalk out to get it to the surface. And whether you bore it and then trench in a little bit now, or you bore it all the way to the location and take that pavement out, I think it's more or less the same.
And so which way are you opting for?
So right now, to simplify the project, we are not going to put a sanitary service there.
Okay. And just the second thing that I would just make a comment on is we have to keep in mind that this is not just for adults. This is for kids too. And kids need bathroom facilities. And so I would encourage that we do the porta-johns and build a wall around them. I don't want to call it a decorative wall, but a wall around them, because I think they will be utilized if people are using this as a place to park their cars and start their start going up the trail either way. So I just throw that in there. So what we need, I think, everybody's commented, it seems like option A seems to be the way to go. I think we're all in agreement that option A is the way to go.
Yeah, the last thing I would add, so I really like the idea of, you didn't say it this way, but going with the light fixtures that are like the square but better. But that's kind of what I heard. And so I would love to use this to also look for grant funding where we could upgrade particularly the bandstand, put the light fixtures where the sign was, that kind of thing, and having a similar sort of vibe to this. I don't know that we have the money to spend that, but I also said that about this parking lot that became a trailhead and then got paid for. So if that same path is, and I don't know if we do that through the Historical Society or what's out there, but I do have to believe that there are some historical oriented grants for that kind of thing. Who knows? But having this have the same look and feel, albeit with a tweak to the square, I think is a great option. So appreciate that.
So I'll just make this other comment. Rob will remember when we were doing community visioning, we were factoring in a separate bandstand look-alike type facility and trying to carry a theme through the city of that bandstand
Sports complex.
feel. Yes. And so I know that would probably dramatically increase the cost of this shelter area, but that was something that came out of community visioning and is something to keep in mind as we plan for the different aspects of the
Yep.
trail.
And I guess one thing worth noting, just for everybody's information, our landscape architects, whatever materials, colors, all that kind of stuff, our intent is to provide the city with a palette, for lack of a better term, that as you make additional upgrades to the parks, or you make modifications to the square, or you build new parks, if you wanted to tie things together, or if you really like the site identity structures that are installed as part of this project, maybe we, in the future, put more elsewhere along the trail or something like that, so that, because I would agree, Rob, I think maybe I didn't present it well in terms of what we're looking at for those site identity structures. We're not trying to duplicate the Raccoon River Valley Trail, but the consistency of theming definitely struck a chord with the staff. And so that's kind of what we've talked about all through this process is let's get some elements put on this site, you know, and then we can make minor adjustments along the way, but then you've got something to carry through the Polk City Junction Trail. So it's not like every other trail.
And let me be clear, that was in no way a criticism
Yep.
of you or what is, I mean, the engineering piece is the important piece. I'd rather have our own vibe than one that goes either with the high trestle or any other trail. Cause again, we're not on a linear stop in a series of stops on those trails. And we're just better anyway, so nobody from those towns listen to these meetings, so I can say that. And nor was the criticism of, or not the criticism, the point about including arts and culture. It's just like everybody has specialties, so appreciate the work here.
So I think you got the okay to move forward. Repeat back to council, please, what you're going to move forward doing.
Concept A, we're gonna dig a little deeper into the porta potties. We're gonna dig deeper into bid alternates for those porta potties. And we're gonna get arts and culture involved.
Handicap parking.
Handicap parking, yes, that is on my, I should have looked at my note sheet, that's from the Parks Commission.
Yeah, see, it's good to repeat that back.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you very much, and we'll move on then. So we'll move on to item B, 6B then, Snyder and Associates invoice in the amount of $40,453 for January 2025 engineering services. I'll ask for a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
And roll call.
Vogel? Yes.
Otis?
Yes.
Sarchet?
Yes.
Savage?
Yes.
Walters?
Abstain.
Moving on to item number 7, reports and particulars. We'll begin with staff. Anything from staff? All right. Chelsea, anything from you?
No, thank you.
Council? And
I do have a couple things. So I'm a little bit late, but I wanted to acknowledge Steve Nowak, and I don't see Chief Hograve here, but Jamie is, and I know she doesn't want the attention, and I know Steve really doesn't want the attention, but nonetheless, we had a retire, it was 25 years. So my connections to the fire department are dwindling very, very quickly, and connections that I have when I was on the fire department to people that were on the fire department well in advance of me are even less. And so appreciate Steve very much. Seeing Steve was two things that stuck out to me and going on calls with Steve. He liked to drive the truck, and he would get to the station accordingly to be able to drive the truck. But I think the other thing, and there's nothing wrong with that, the other thing is he was the engineer and in a lot of cases, and that's the behind the scenes water supply job that almost nobody wants to do. Everybody wants to do the fun stuff. They want to go in the buildings. They want to break stuff. They want to tear it down. They want to do all that. And Steve was just there to help. And I don't think anybody I had exposure to had a better embodiment of that. So, and to do it for 25 years is pretty amazing, raising 2 kids and Jamie's connections to everything with the city. So everybody deserves recognition that has served in that capacity. Some deserve a little bit more, and I think for all those reasons, Steve does. So wanted to, and I think he's done like a month ago. Yeah, so well wishes on all the time you guys now have together in lieu of calls. The other thing I wanted to bring up as some of the Four Seasons stuff has gotten a little bit more rubber meets the road in terms of planning. Do we have anything that's sort of thematically joining the events that we have and the 150th anniversary? It seems like an opportunity maybe to engage some groups that are either already doing things and tie them into that. How do you say 150? Is it sesquicentennial? 150, I'm gonna butcher it. So just bringing together a group that can maybe pull some of those things and the theme together, and not just city stuff, but I don't know what the Historical Society has planned or the school has planned, but I think doing this now earlier in the year may be a good idea, just to celebrate all the different pieces, because these big milestones don't happen for everybody, and I think we have a lot to celebrate. So I don't know where that lands necessarily, but just a thought that I had.
I do know we're going to have cake because I've promised it twice now publicly. So we're having cake, and this will be the 3rd time. So everything Rob said about recognizing Steve, I would say that's great. Well said, Rob, and we really appreciate that service in the community. So we'll move on to item number 8, which is adjournment, and I'll ask for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. We're adjourned until March 24th. Thank you, everybody. Good meeting.